Hearing words this morning, Senator, like one-off, limited, reasonable, rational, was this the right strike, in your opinion, at the right time?
Yeah, but I wouldn't emphasize too much one-off here. It depends on the reaction of the Syrians, and including the Russians, because a lot of these things have got to stop. The barrel bombing has got to stop. The slaughter has got to stop. So, and we have work to do, like establishing a safe zone and arming the Free Syrian Army. So there's a lot. This is the beginning, Matt. I think there's a little too much euphoria here this morning. I think it's important. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's a signal. The States is listening carefully to the best national security team that I've seen, but we got a long way to go.
I'm interested to hear you say that, because the line here has always been chemical weapons. Assad uses chemical weapons. That's the line that can't be crossed. But as we've discussed this morning, and I think you're alluding to, over the last 5 or 6 years, he's killed hundreds of thousands of his own people with conventional weapons. And why is that any better? What are we going to do about that?
Well, I think we have to say that the barrel bombing has to stop. You're right. Of all the 400 and some thousand that have been killed, a small percentage. But it is also symbolic, that the use of chemical weapons, because there is no doubt in anybody's mind that a horrendous use of this weapon is in violation of every norm, every international agreement. So it is very important that that stop. But as I said, we've got a lot more work to do to stop the slaughter that has driven Europe into chaos, a flood of refugees, and one of the great humanitarian crises of the last, since World War II.
Senator, we know that Syria at this point is essentially a client state of Russia, that Putin is pulling the strings with Assad. Our Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, is going to sit down with Putin next week. What should be the message to Moscow? And do you have confidence that this administration is willing to get tough with Putin?
Well, I think the signal that was sent last night was not just for Bashar Assad, it was also for Putin. But as I say, now a lot of work needs to be done that probably couldn't have been accomplished without this beginning, but it is only the beginning. I think he sits down and he talks to him and said, look, it's not acceptable for you to be supporting and propping up a regime that uses chemical weapons, period. And we won't, we find that unacceptable, and we're going to take actions, undescribed actions, to prevent this kind of activity from continuing. And it has to be a strong message, because Vladimir Putin believes that we are weak. And so I think it's appropriate that the Secretary of State Tillerson make his trip at this time. I think it's also appropriate that the Chinese leader happened to be here at that time as well.
Well, you segue perfectly into my question. Obviously, the meeting's now between President Trump and the Chinese leader. The Chinese leader is perhaps the key person in the world for helping us deal with North Korea. And so what do you think is the reaction of Kim Jong-un as he's sitting in North Korea watching the results of what happened in Syria last night?
I think what happened last night reverberates around the globe to every terrorist organization that there is, and there's lots of them, but also to Kim Jong-un. He's a little less comfortable, because we have shown that the United States of America, under certain circumstances, will make use of our military power, which is still the strongest on earth. And we have to emphasize to the Chinese that we understand only they can control North Korea, and if they don't, then it's going to have an impact on our relationship, especially economically. So hopefully Kim Jong-un got the message last night, and also the Chinese president, who happened to be sitting at dinner while this was taking place, also got the message. The United States is not an aggressive nation, but there are certain threats to the United States of America that we would have to respond to and at best prevent.
Senator McCain, quickly before we let you go, is there any question in your mind that Bashar al-Assad was trying to test President Trump and the Trump administration by launching this attack earlier this week, and how do you think President Trump responded to that test?
I think it was a test. You can go back to Jack Kennedy and the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis. Most every new president has been tested by adversaries, and I believe that Putin may test us in Ukraine. But I think that the president responded well. I think most importantly to me, and this is most importantly to me, is that the president put his trust in the advice and counsel of the strongest national security team that I have observed.
Senator John McCain, Senator.